All right, let's get it. Today I want to introduce a series called Contrary to Popular Belief. On this first episode, I would like to address freedom of speech. So without further ado, contrary to popular belief, freedom of speech isn't free. Now I've pasted a copy of the First Amendment on here just so we can be absolutely clear about what it says. I've also put a definition of a bridge just to clear up any doubts. Now, I have a few examples to support this claim. I chose a few celebrity examples as opposed to political prisoners because I consider that to be low-hanging fruit. I also want to show Americans only as this pertains to the First Amendment. Now, let me begin by stating that I do not agree or disagree with any of the positions taken by those subjects mentioned on this video. That's not the message I'm trying to relay. My point is, you can protest or take a stand against the establishment, if you will, but know that it may come at a price. Example 1, Jane Fonda. Jane has a popular series on Netflix currently. I believe it's called Frankie and Grace. For my older listeners, they may remember Jane as the space vixen Barbarella. What some might not know is Jane, or Hanoi Jane as they dubbed her back in the day, spoke out against the Vietnam War. I'm not going to get into what she said or did. Again, that's not the point of this video. The point is, Jane paid a price. Her movie career was basically over. Unofficially banned from Hollywood, she had to reinvent herself as a fitness guru and made many workout videos during her so-called blacklisting. She also married Ted Turner, yes, the mega rich owner of TNT, TBS, TCM, and all of those networks. So maybe it wasn't that costly to Jane after all. Next we have the GOAT, Cassius Clay, also known as Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali is still to this day probably one of the most popular athletes in the world. He brought a flair and a style to boxing that many try to emulate to this day. He was loud and boisterous, charismatic, and handsome. What some may not know is the champ also spoke out against the Vietnam War and refused to acknowledge the draft. Just a little side note, the Army rejected him a few years prior, but again, I'm not taking sides. As a result of his actions, the champ was arrested, stripped of his title, and suspended from boxing for over 3 years. And you have to take into account that boxers back then weren't getting $30 million purses like boxers today. There was no pay-per-view money or network deals. So with that being said, the champ paid a significant price for his stance. Example 3, Sinead O'Connor. This Irish cutie had a very popular song in the early 1990s. As you can see on the screen, Nothing Compares to You, which was written by Prince, spent weeks at #1 on the charts. On this Billboard chart, she's listed at #2, ahead of the likes of Mariah Carey, Madonna, Janet Jackson, Paula Abdul, and New Kids on the Block, just to name a few. So it's safe to say she was a big deal. Until October the 3rd, 1992. What happened on this day? This little songbird ripped a picture of the Pope on Saturday Night Live. Yes, in front of a live studio audience. She received plenty of backlash and outrage for her random act of wokeness. So much so that her career never recovered. I think she still makes some underground music, but once again, her career suffered mightily. Next up, the Dixie Chicks. These country debutantes set the music world on fire in the late 1990s. I'm not a country music fan, but even I was aware of some of their songs. They were on top. But in 2003, they spoke out against the Iraq War and then President George W. Bush. Oddly enough, they were touted for their bravery and recognized as heroes. Right? Of course not. Their records were removed from the shelves, and these Grammy-winning recording artists basically went on hiatus until, you guessed it, 2020, their first project in 14 years. And for the finale, I want to talk about Colin Kaepernick. I think most of us are familiar with Kaepernick's story, so there's no need to go in depth. But for the few that may need a refresher, he's the guy that kneeled during the national anthem. Controversy followed, and Cap was and is still blackballed from the NFL. He also won a lawsuit for an undisclosed amount against the NFL, which basically confirms that he was banned for his protests. For those who say he wasn't that good to begin with, he was a Super Bowl QB just a few years back. So while he ultimately got paid, his decision to kneel basically cost him his career. Well, that's all I have for this one. Thanks for listening. And if you like the way I think, hop over to Patreon. The link is in the description box below. Check out my short stories. It's only $1.50 to join. I have a few stories on there so far, and my plan is to add one at least once a month. This too will be an ongoing series on YouTube, so hit the notification bell, subscribe, so you won't get FOMO on all future videos. But thanks for your time. Peace.